It's our big Logies wash-up, including a gatecrasher causes wild scenes, the acceptance speech that's been blasted in court by a judge, and the inside word on where TV's biggest award ceremony will be next year. Welcome to the podcast where people in the industry get their news. TV Black Box is about to start.
This is TV Black Box, bringing you the inside goss from the TV industry.
We'll meet the panel in just a moment, but first it was during This Week in Television History. Yes, we witnessed Australia's first ever Tats Lotto draw. The total prize pool was $168,000, which in today's money is almost $2 million. The draw was hosted by HSV7, but GTV9 wasn't about to lose ratings to the big game. They promoted heavily in the newspapers to still watch 9, and they'll give you the winning numbers by flashing them up on the screen. Hello and welcome to TV Black Box. I am Rob McKnight. Joining me tonight, we've got the fabulous David Robbo Robinson. Hello, David.
Hello there. Happy television, everyone.
Happy television. Mulk, the mulkiest Mulk of them all. Hello, Mulk.
Sure. Hello.
That was an old callback from many episodes ago. Philip Kosh, the magazine writer for The Stars, to The Stars and about The Stars. Hello, Philip.
Thanks. Hi, Rob. You might want to tell The Stars.
And the delightful and exquisite Sarah Monahan is still in the country. We can't get rid of her. She's like a bad smell hanging around. Hello, Sarah.
Yes.
Wow.
I'm very much enjoying the smelly parts of Sydney, walking around rediscovering it.
We love having you here. And I've got to say, I listened to the podcast last week. Great job, of course. No surprises there. But I didn't get to say my own little goodbye to Aaron Ryan, who's been a big part of TV Black Box for the last few years, a great member of the podcast. I'm very fond of Aaron. Sad to see him go, but sometimes the little birds just have to leave the nest and fly away and do their thing. But Aaron, thank you very much for everything you've done. We really do appreciate it and wish you nothing but success. Let's get into it. And we begin with some breaking news. And Channel 10 News is set for more changes as news director Anthony Murdoch is leaving suddenly. The news was broken just before 5 p.m. in an email to staff by Martin and Rochelle, head of broadcast and digital news strategy, which said, "It is with sadness that we share with you the news that Anthony Murdoch is leaving us. We accepted Bug's resignation yesterday and are sure you'll all join us in wishing him all the very best." Rob, this is one of the big personalities in the 10 newsroom who keeps that engine going.
It really does, Rob. Bug is a wonderful man. He loves news. He understands news and he understands production. I also thought that one of Bug's greatest strengths was understanding 10's weaknesses, but making them better. So, Bug knew that he didn't have the budgets of 7 and 9, but he made it work and he just was... I don't know. The word I think of is electricity in that newsroom. He was passionate about what he did. He had respect of everyone, journalists, producers, graphics, audio, everyone. And I think that is such a massive loss for that newsroom. If you think about experience and passion, wow, I really think they're going to find a hole there for a long time. Bug was fantastic. And I worked with Bug, with my dealings with Studio 10, and he was such a wonderful support and would always give advice, but when you needed it, and he knew when you needed it.
Right.
And it was that is such a lovely thing for him, and I think a lot of people would echo my sentiments there. Well done, Bug, and you'll sorely be missed.
Yeah, and good luck. The Channel 10 newsroom, we don't know who's taking over his role as news director. He took over from John Ciafetti. He worked under Chuff. It's a tough gig because there are no resources. You are scrimping everything together to be able to get an hour and a half bulletin to air. And don't forget, the Sydney News Bulletin does too. It does Queensland and New South Wales and has to pre-record the Queensland one, sections of it at 4 o'clock. Melbourne is doing Adelaide and Melbourne. And I think the Sydney one is the one that does Perth as well, but that's later and they can do that live.
That's correct. And as we're about to talk about, Rob, now have a bit to do in the mornings too.
Yes, indeed, but we'll get to that in a moment. But first of all, Let's talk Logies, because after a 2-year hiatus due to COVID, the Logies returned to the Gold Coast on Sunday night and delivered great ratings for Channel 9. The Logies Red Carpet managed an overnight rating of 826,000, while the main event pulled in 885,000 in the 5 cap cities. It was a solid production, but failed to provide the showmanship or sizzle of previous years. And I don't mean the last few years, I mean a long time ago. Although those attending the ceremony seemed genuinely thrilled to have the Logies back. The opening number by Julia Morris didn't seem to hit with those in the room, and new executive producer Melinda Zara seemed to be painting by numbers on a format established years ago by those who came before her. And that means it was all fine. Nothing special, just fine. The Hall of Fame tribute package for Bruce McAvaney was a highlight, but the lack of any real recognition for Neighbours, which had just concluded production, was simply outrageous. Throwing a half-baked montage in as part of another award does not cut it. If the Logies can't celebrate the success of a show finishing after 37 years, then exactly what is the point of the Logies and its celebration of the Australian television industry? But worse, dividing the In Memoriam segment into the haves and have-nots was an absolute farce, showcasing only some people who had passed on over the 3 years since the last Logies, and then telling viewers to go to the website to see the others was beyond the pale. How dare you determine who is good enough to be included in the on-air section and who gets shafted to the leftovers section on the web? Poor, poor form. But despite those two moments, overall it was a reasonable enough production with some wonderful moments, including when Paddy Newton delivered an emotional tribute to Bert. While his tribute package was also lacking, her speech and Hamish Blake being the first winner of the Bert Newton Award for Most Popular Presenter, well, that was just wonderful. Sarah, what did you think of the Logies?
I thought it was fantastic. I know people like to shit on the Logies, but everyone
I do not like to shit on the Logies. I support
know you
the Logies.
don't. You and I are both Logie supporters. Everyone just looks so happy and so excited. And I think that having not had the Logies for a couple of years made people actually appreciate what it was. And, you know, like, yeah, it's the media coming together and patting each other on the back, but it's also the night that you get to go out and you get to talk to people from other networks, people who live in, you know, other cities. I mean, I looked back because I went to the Logies in 91, 92, so it was 20 years ago, and I tried to find footage of what it was 20 years ago, and I'll share it with Twitter.
Sorry, Sarah.
Because
Do you mean 30 years ago, sweetheart? I mean, I don't want to age you, but 20 years ago was 2002, my darling.
I guess. So 30 years.
Wow.
Yep. Wow. I'm fucking
We have fun
old.
here. We have fun. You look beautiful.
Yes. Okay. So
Everyone's fun. It's all fun.
thank you for giving me another 10 years on my life.
Robbo, you old man.
So, yes, a long time ago. And we certainly, like, we make fun of it. It's not that splashy. But if you look at the footage from, actually, Magda Zubanski did the opening for it way back then, it's come a long way. I'll just say that.
Look, from there at the event, the red carpet was really well done. The organisation of it was really, really well done. But, Robbo, to me, what it missed is a visionary producer, and I don't mean to be mean to the person who did it this year. This person has been involved in the Logies in previous years as a producer, stepped up to the EP role. But when she steps back and says, what was my great contribution to the Logies, I don't know that she'll be able to answer that. I think it's time the networks went, let's bring in a big entertainment producer who can really bring us something special. Neighbours, for example, I'm not pitching myself, Miles.
No, I know.
I'm not pitching myself. They would never give it to me as much as I would desperately love to do it. I'm putting that to the side. Get someone who has a vision, understands the industry, and can actually do a Neighbours tribute. I don't know, try something crazy. Try and get Kylie and Jason there and make international headlines. At least put the cast up on the stage to say farewell. Robbo.
Do you know, the thing is, I think, in producing the Logies is that you have tried, and I think they've tried for many, many years, to bring in someone to modernise the Logies.
No,
the
they
Logies can't be...
They haven't brought in... Who have they brought in that said, I've got a vision for the Logies?
Sorry, 1 second, Rob. Just let me get out my whole point here. What I'm suggesting is that there's always been this idea of bringing the Logies to modern times, making them be watchable to a lot of people. My point is, I think they haven't done that. What they need to do is get some legacy producers in television who have been there for a long time who love it.
Yes.
The Logies
Yes.
don't have producers who love television.
Correct.
And you can see that, and you've seen that for years and years and years. What we need is either new people who have a genuine love for Australian television, and one of those people I'm going to say is, of course, Matthew Russell, who loves television. There are a lot of people out there, but they love the entire history of television. That's what it needs. They've tried to do something where it is modern or where it's different or where it's like the Golden Globes or the Emmys. That's not working, and it hasn't worked for ages. And I think they've tried that for a good 20 years. What they need to do is go back to the magic, the nostalgia, and dare I say it, the kitsch of Australian television. Australian television is not the same as America. It's not the same as the UK. So stop trying to make it as if it is.
True.
The Logies are amazing. Are an amazing get together for all the people in the industry. I think it's time to celebrate what Australian television is, and I think that's what we keep missing the mark with the Logies. There are people who understand the business of television. They don't understand the magic of Australian television.
Mulk, the first thing anyone will say is, what are you talking about? Channel 9 got a 42% share. It rated 860,000. You guys are up your own arse. You haven't got a clue what you're talking about. I thought it was a solid production. It just wasn't extraordinary, and I think there were some fatal flaws.
It's such an interesting position that we find ourselves in with the Logies, because I agree wholeheartedly with Robbo. I think that we need to lean in a little more, and what the Logies needs is someone who loves the magic of television, and particularly Australian television. That's what's lacking. I agree with you. I think that the broadcast on Sunday was fine, and that's its most fatal error.
Yeah.
It was just fine. There was no searing moment, like high, sort of everything was amazing. There were beautiful moments with Bruce McAvaney's Hall of Fame acceptance speech, with Paddy introducing and then giving Hamish Blake the Bert Newton Award. All of that, lovely. But it wasn't a searing high. It wasn't a big moment. At the same time, there was no real car crash that everyone could bitch and moan about and say things were horrible.
Yep.
There were some lovely matchups. There were some great jokes here and there.
Yep. Sam
Pang, it is still beyond me how that guy hasn't been nominated for a Gold Logie, probably because he's in everybody's camp and not just in one camp. He and Chrissy Swan can host anything as far as I'm concerned. Next. The difficulty is it is still a program with a finite audience and a finite runtime. Without wanting to, and it still went 38 minutes late. Like, come on, friends.
It's not like the Oscars, it goes 2 hours late.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't think that was too bad.
Well, I mean, the Oscars they've had its moments. It's not the longest overrun for the Logies, but at the same time, it was also nowhere near the highest rating Logies. This was, I think, the third lowest in Logies history. So that's not
but you
great
know what? Nine's still got a 42% share, and television audiences have diminished. I think an overnight rating of 860,000 in the 5-cap city, I think that's a good result. I'm going to give them that.
This is the challenge of share versus actual eyeballs. A share makes it sound so much better than it was.
But you can't keep comparing to 20 years ago, because no show on television is getting the eyeballs that it did 20 years ago.
The lowest two were the two immediately prior to COVID. We can compare them to that. This was the Logies' big comeback special, for lack of a better, and they came back to nothing. I do want to hold you to account, Rob. I think that you are being overly harsh about the In Memoriam.
No.
Because especially every year they have to cut people out and they don't include people. Whether it's an oversight or it's an intentional.
Don't do it, or just do on-air talent.
Rubbish, Rob. You cannot not do it.
So, hang on. Someone works in the industry for 30 years and some producer decides they're not worthy of a mention on the broadcast because we've got to cut it out for time. You either do it right or you don't do it at all.
Hang on. What's doing it right, Rob?
Doing it right is including
In
everyone who has contributed to the industry.
Yeah, look, sorry, Mark, I've got to agree with Rob on this one. This is really big. I've worked with a lot of people across television who don't know Kerry Ann, or they don't know Graham Kennedy, or they don't know Jane Turner. And I think that's a big problem. So when you've got young producers, which more and more these kind of big productions employ because they're cheap, don't know the people, so they automatically make a decision that they're not included. I think,
but it's not a single producer that makes that decision. Absolutely, the In Memoriam is a decision by committee because it has to be.
I agree. but they did another 3-minute package on the website. Just do a 6-minute package in the thing. Make it. The performance was amazing. The way they did it was fantastic, on point. I'm quoted in our blog, in the live blog I was doing, saying, this is brilliant. And then at the end, my world came crashing down when I saw that for more, go to the website. And I'm like, hang on, am I understanding this right? They've left people out that have been shafted to the website. That is the greatest insult ever.
Yeah, I saw 3 people who've been associated with Hey Dad in the bit that went to air, and I haven't gone to the website yet to see how many more there were. And I wonder how many people from other shows, didn't realize someone had died, or they're like, oh yeah, it tugs at my heart. But it's like, then, how many more that you knew and were friends with weren't mentioned?
I don't want to labour this. Every other year, people are not included. And at least this year, they had the capacity to be able to say, and here are the others, or here are extra people that we couldn't fit in for time. Rob, you are an executive producer that has run live television. It already ran 38 minutes over.
You make decisions.
I acknowledge it might be only... You do make decisions. They made a decision, and by their estimates, it was the right one.
I'll tell you what. If I was the head of Channel 9, I'd be firing someone over that, because that was the wrong decision. That was insulting and besmirches the reputation of anyone that's screwed over on that package. No one is going to watch on the website. You have tarnished their reputation, and they'd be turning over in their graves. I find it absolutely
EP's head
appalling.
is the one on the chopping block, no question. They're the one that ultimately says yes or no to how stuff goes. Without prolonging it, we'll just have to profoundly disagree on whether or not they did it. Philip, I want to ask you a question. I think it was last week's episode, we talked about the fact that Tom Gleeson didn't make for good magazine fodder as the Gold Logie winner. Will Hamish Blake right the ship?
Look, he's not a huge seller for magazines, to be honest.
Not even with his wife on his arm?
There was a recent cover of Hamish and his wife, and I believe it didn't sell that well.
I did love Hughesy's joke, by the way. you guys remember that in the intro? That Zoe Foster Blake is so rich that he can play with Lego all day.
Yeah.
See, whereas I think that the place that the Logies missed out was, unlike the American ones where they have the full red carpet experience, and they did it very briefly with David Campbell, who is always amazing, but it's like they could have gone the American route. Like, there was 20 people or more on that red carpet, each doing stuff on Instagram and Twitter.
Broadcast it live.
Yeah, do it, at least have it online, because to me, that's the bit, like when you watch Fashion Police or any of those shows in the States, that is the event. Nobody gives a shit about the awards.
Didn't Nine Honey cover it live?
Look, maybe you're right. They didn't promote it well enough, because I was not aware of any live.
I asked on Twitter earlier who was doing it, and they said it'll come up at like 6:30, and they were busy playing the football. Like, I hate football to begin with.
Well, it's not going to be broadcast live, I can promise that, because Nine have football commitments. It could go onto an alternate channel, 9 Gem or whatever. But I think that 9 Honey covered it live, certainly. But that's a beside the point. Well done, Rob, on your coverage, and congratulations to Matthew, who helped you run the red carpet there, and to Abby Mickelson, superstar producer to the stars, Dave Robbo, and myself, hiding away in various parts of the country, trying to make it all go and get it up with Band-Aids and string.
Thank you, Mark. Look, there are a few tidbits I want to mention. I know we spent a lot of time on Logies, but I want to quickly say the event was a really well done event. Riser coming in and taking over the event. I thought they did an amazing job. The red carpet was seamless and smooth. By all accounts, the event itself was fantastic. I just thought it didn't have that big picture idea. But the big question is, where will the Logies be held next year? The contract with Queensland government and the Logies ran out at midday on Monday, so now the rebidding begins. I have been speaking to sources within the Queensland government, and I can tell you that they are talking to their partners. They are very keen to keep it. They say it's worth $60 million in promotion, and they want to keep Queensland Screenland. So that is from within the Queensland government. I've got a slide story here about a gatecrasher at an after party. So there was this guy who has worked in the industry, drove down from Brisbane, dressed in a tux, crashed an after party full of executives that had sacked him, allegedly.
Wow.
So was this you?
Others, and he spent the time there pretending he was back working at this certain channel's party that he gate crashed. They escorted him out, and then when they all started going to other parties, he was there hiding in the bushes and trying to bail them all up again.
So did you get arrested for that?
I don't think he was doing anything untowards in the bushes, but I love a little bit of Logies gossip like that.
Rob,
and that's all in the Guess Who Don't Sue section. We obviously need to acknowledge that today...
Rob McKnight, that's who.
Who was he talking about? That's what everyone listening to this... Right now, I'm not a psychic, but I'll say right now, every single person at this moment is going, who's he talking about?
Well, there's obviously a reason I'm not saying it, because it could be defamatory and, there's some things you have to be careful of.
It's only defamatory if he didn't do it.
You haven't lived until you've been rejected from a Logies party, and I've been rejected from them all.
We'll also quickly mention that today beats sunrise. Obviously, will Karl be off his chops interest factor.
Yes, I watched it.
And of course, Lisa Wilkinson is in some very serious trouble now because of her Logies acceptance speech. The judge over the Brittany Higgins alleged rape trial has really torn her to shreds because she was actually given a warning, apparently, over delivering a speech at the Logies about Brittany Higgins days before she accepted the award, because we know the project won Best News coverage. The news.com.au reports ACT Chief Justice Lucy McCallum vacated the trial dates of Bruce Lerman, who is accused of raping Brittany Higgins in March 2019, after his defence team requested a temporary stay in the wake of the speech and surrounding publicity. The judge said the recent publicity of the speech does, in my view, change the landscape because of its immediacy, its intensity, and its capacity to obliterate the important distinction between an allegation that remains untested at law. For those reasons, regrettably, and with gritted teeth, I've concluded that the trial date of 27 June, towards which the parties have been carefully steering, must be vacated.
So, having been through this myself, I think it's, on the one hand, it's amazing that she won the award for that interview because it's so important that we've done that. But at the same time, Lisa gave that speech to the DPP, and the DPP said, we are not speechwriters. We can't edit your speech for you. What they should have said is, do not say it, or the court should have put a suppression order on her saying anything about it before the case if they thought that this was what going to be the outcome is. So, to me, the whole thing is just...
Well, the judge actually said she made a mistake in not putting a suppression order on this case.
So, I feel horrible for all the parties involved because it sucks every time that your court date is blown out.
Every time.
And then, because if it does go, he'll claim, and if Brittany wins, he'll claim an appeal saying, it's a tainted jury. And if it waits, then hopefully, they can't claim that. Like Robert tried to claim it in our case that, the jury was tainted and the judge said it's not. So it really just sucks for everybody. And I don't think that there was any, they couldn't not accept the award. They couldn't, say we don't want to be nominated for the award.
No, of course not. She just needed to say, look, thank you for this award. It's before the courts. I can't say anything. I'm just proud of the incredible work our team did in bringing you this story. That's all she had to say.
That would have been much better, I think.
Yeah, perfect world. This should not make any difference in the way the legal system works, but it does. Look, I want to be sarcastic here for a minute. Lisa Wilkinson, she's only new to media. She doesn't understand things like this. She hasn't worked. Oh, no, that's right. She has been here for years and years and years. I, like everyone, want to see justice served. And it has to be within the system because that's the system we're working with. All right? That's what it has to be. I believe that Lisa Wilkinson, I think ego got in the way on Sunday night. I think it had to be brought back to Lisa. It had to be brought back to the project. And they cannot... They just cannot help themselves. And I think that was the problem. Rob, I agree with you in the respect of it should have been, this is a great award for us. We accept the award. We wish we could say more. We can't right now. That's powerful, but it's not as ego feeding. And that's what we saw on Sunday night. It was all about ego, and it was not about the case, and it was not about Brittany Higgins.
Oh, no, look, I shake my head about the Brittany Higgins thing. anyone that's a journalist and has dealt with contempt of court issues before, and most people have to, it's a really serious thing. It's a really scary thing. You can go to jail. I don't know that you ever roll the dice and hope for the best when it's contempt of court, and that appears to be what happened here, particularly with, you would imagine, all the advice and the toing and froing beforehand. So I was gobsmacked by that.
All right, well, that's the Logies. We'll move on to other topics in just a moment when TV Black Box, the podcast, continues, including the ABC putting out content warnings. We'll give you all the ratings goss from the last 7 days and go back in time to find out what the +7 figures are. And we'll also find out what everyone's been watching over the past week. You are listening to TV Black Box, the podcast. Well, the ABC is airing classic programs to celebrate 90 years on air, but with the classics comes a content warning. Viewers of Parkinson in Australia were subject to a disclaimer reading, "The following program expresses attitudes that are not consistent with current standards and may offend some viewers." The disclaimer has caused controversy, with people claiming it is another example of cancel culture, unable to identify what the offensive content was in the PG-rated talk show. An ABC spokesman told the Daily Mail Australia that the use of warnings before content of this nature is consistent with the ABC's editorial policies. Phil, TV Black Box certainly needs a content warning before anybody watches this. You know, whether it's a McKnight rant or a Robbo's rant raving.
I like that.
Or a Mulk meltdown.
Whoa. Thanks, Ben Fordham.
Well, I think the ABC should thank Ben Fordham for making this such a big issue, because...
Well, we all know these things are on iView now. I'm going to take a look.
We all want to have a look now. I can't imagine what Ida Buttrose, the chair of the ABC, said in a Parkinson interview that warrants a warning, but God knows, I'm looking forward to seeing it. Kerry Packer, Paul Hogan interviews, these are the things that all have warnings. Yes, all these people lived in the 70s and the 80s. They probably said inappropriate things. We all thought differently there, and I don't know, just a storm in a teacup. Of course, the ABC is going to put that warning on these sort of shows. They have to. That's part of. That's exactly what.
But Philip, you haven't seen these programs first run though, have you? Because you're too.
Oh, come on.
You're too
Mate,
young.
he saw them on the replays as well.
I was suckled on Parky's teeth.
So let's work this out. Tonight, Robbo has said that Sarah's 10 years older and that Philip is too young to have seen Parkinson first run. Anyway.
Thank you, Robbo.
Look, the interesting thing for mine, Rob, is that, look, it's a few seconds of whatever. Who cares?
I've got to agree with you, Mulk.
Some outrage over nothing.
There's some things I get worked up about. This is not one of them. I don't care. If it makes the ABC feel better, go fill your boots.
And the real interesting thing is, it's not just the ABC episodes of Parkinson when he was in Australia. They've actually gone and either bought or have gained the access to when Parkinson, he then did it, so I think it was on Channel 10 back in the day, a whole bunch of them. So there's like 170 episodes of him doing his interviews, and the ones particularly that he didn't do on the ABC have imported guests. They brought people out from the UK and the US
Love that.
to sit alongside Aussies on the, talking to Parky. And look, I can guarantee you some of those views will not be kosher today.
And he only did Parkinson in Australia because he was a cricket fan, right?
Yeah, every year he would come out. He'd get a spot down on North Head somewhere in, or south, around, Bondi or whatever. Go and watch the cricket.
And he'd do it as a tax write-off and do some work, Sarah.
I figure they're just doing it to cover their bases, because there's so many lazy journalists now who do entire articles about one person on Twitter was upset about something. So just slap up a 2-second warning and cover your bases.
Well, it's not even cover your bases. There is content in those interviews that are opinions that are not kosher today.
Okay, but they're old. Get over it.
In your opinion.
Mate, it's not even in my opinion, I can promise you.
But I think that the ABC has to be careful with this, and they're doing the right thing. Remember, everyone seems to forget in all these articles that one of the first people or the first streaming services to do it was Disney Plus.
Yes, correct.
They were the first people to come across and say Peter Pan, the Aristocats, all of those kind of things.
I think even The Lion King, Robbo.
Yeah. So there are some of these shows, we're still going to play them. We're not going to take them off. We're not going to delete them. But just remember they were from a different time. So you could have, it doesn't matter where a show is set, whether it's set in a sushi restaurant, whether it's set at Disney, it doesn't matter. Wherever it is, you just have to remember that if it was back in the day, there might be some things, and that's okay.
Look, at the end of the day, I would rather have a content warning and have the program than have an edited version or worse,
taken off.
No program at all.
Exactly.
Agreed.
All right, moving on. And TV Black Box, yes, good old TV Black Box, has revealed Network 10 is heading back into the breakfast TV market. A new half-hour bulletin will replace the 8 to 8:30am block of Studio 10. However, unlike its rivals, it will just be a straight news broadcast. This will be the third attempt in 10 years that the network has entered the competitive time slot. The first was Breakfast, followed by Wake Up. Both programs lasted less than a year. Robbo, this is neither here nor there, really. This is not a major move. It's using existing resources. They're not losing any people. They're not putting any people on.
It's 30 minutes.
They're literally just using the Studio 10 crew to deliver an extended update, which they were doing at 8:30 anyway.
Yeah, that's right. You know what would be great, though? And I don't know if 10's got this in them anymore, but in 2013, 2014, they were doing the late news. They had Hamish on there as well. They were doing, a music performance at the end of it.
Yep.
It was something very different that was working as their late news. And I believe that 10 Late News is probably one of the most famous bulletins in that area for a long time.
For sure.
Yes, we had Nightline. Yes, we had 7 Late, but it was 10's Late News with Sandra Sully for a long time that really kind of kicked in. And then when Hamish, they tried to do something differently by having the news. They had a lot of interviews and they had music performances. I really liked it. They were acoustic. It was great. It was something different. What I'm going to say here for this 8 to 8:30 is that it's redone news stories from the day before. That's fine, whatever. Most news services do that. However, those news services, for example, 7 Early News, that's broadcasting at 5:30 in the morning. And then we're getting new stuff during sunrise. This is now at 8 o'clock. People might have. Yeah,
but they can do a cross to a reporter. It won't feel stale like you think it will.
The proof will be in the pudding.
Fresh.
The proof will be in the pudding. They will have to show us.
I agree, but they're going to have. Basically, they'll do the news headlines in the first segment. They'll cross to a couple of reporters that are assigned to do that anyway. The second segment, they'll probably, I think that's where they're going to have a feature interview with some topic of the day and have an expert that can talk to it. Segment 3 is your sport. Segment 4 is your weather. Then you're into Studio 10. So, this isn't anything major. Straight news service could work.
I love the idea.
Maybe if they start to see an uplift, they'll just say, you know what, we're going to run news from 7 a.m. And maybe put some resources in. They're not going to do another breakfast show. They're out of that market. There's no desire. But you've got to remember, people running newsrooms want to be making news. And this is a way that 10 head honchos get to say, well, it's not going to cost us anything. Do it. And the people hosting Studio 10 do a half hour less because they're already doing 23 hours a day.
We are literally nanoseconds away from any of the commercial free-to-air broadcasters giving us a 24-hour news channel. They basically could do it
close.
Now. Robbo, are you saying...
The rumblings are out there.
Yeah. Just to jump back, Robbo, where you were talking about the late news, the reworked one that had Hamish at the front of it, the music act and stuff. Are you saying that was news done differently?
I was... You know what? I almost went to say that and I was going to explode and vomit in my mouth.
I think it's great that they're going to have a half hour in the morning without an infomercial.
This could be for you. Well, after we exclusively revealed back in February that $1 Million Island was coming to 7, the host has now been announced. Former soldier and Marine and host of SAS Australia, Ant Middleton, will front the show, which sees 100 people on a remote desert island vying for a chance to win $1 million. While full broadcast details are yet to be confirmed, it is thought to be up against Nine's Married at First Sight in 2023. Meanwhile, 7 wasn't the only network announcing a new show in the past week, with 9 dropping the news of Grown Up Love, hosted by radio and television presenter Kate Langbrook. This was yet another TV Black Box exclusive back in February as well, though it was under a different name of My Mum, Your Dad. Produced by ITV Studios, Grown Up Love sees parents re-enter the daunting modern dating world in a second chance at finding love. Phil, I saw a promo for this. at Nine's Logies recovery brunch, the brunch they had.
It
the day
was
after
you
the
that snuck
Logies.
in.
I was still there from the Channel 7 party the night before on the floor. I've got to say, their promo for the Australian version doesn't seem to be leaning into the kids making the decisions like the US promo does. I think they're missing a trick. The Aussie promo didn't get me in, I've got to say, what they presented there. I hope when they actually launch this thing, we see the kids making these decisions, because if you see the American promo of this, it's hilarious and you're in.
Yeah, I'm thinking more tearjerker with the show like that. Surely it being Australian television will be all about the backstory and the tragedy that led to the date, no?
I think that will definitely be part of it, but it's also meant to be a bit of fun, and you get interesting moments where the kids determine what happens on the day. And maybe at the moment Nine are being very coy. Maybe they're still shooting it.
Maybe they're still getting the rights.
They've got the rights. I think what they're doing maybe is, if they haven't shot it yet, they don't want everyone participating to know the setup. And the setup is that the parents go on dates, but the kids are watching these dates. So the kids of each parent are watching these dates, and they're setting up things and making things happen, like turn on the sprinklers because I want to get him away from my mum. Yeah. Things like that. Gosh. So there is a real comedic element. And especially if one kid thinks that the other's parent isn't good enough for their parent. So there's all these... You've got the emotion of what's happening with the actual dates and the backstories, but you've also got the fun moments of the kids controlling the dates. It actually works on multiple levels.
You sell it a lot better than Nine, Rob.
Yeah, agreed.
I think the only thing that makes, whether they're going to call it Grown Up Love or My Mum, Your Dad, I think they've missed out on the opportunity, because it really should be called The Flatulent Bachelor. It is... The only thing that makes that work...
I rule that out of order.
Whatever.
Out of order.
The only thing that makes it work is the kids. If the kids aren't involved, will play a lesser role than the American version. Its goose is cooked. I don't
because otherwise it's just an old bachelor, as you say.
I don't rate Kate Langbrook as a host. I don't think she'll do a fine... I think at best she'll be the voiceover. If she does anything more than that, it's not going to be very good.
I like her.
Look, she might be very lovely. I just don't rate her. When was the last time we saw Kate Langbrook host anything? I
actually have a feeling she'll be brilliant, but I don't know.
And she may well be, and I will happily eat humble pie if that is the case. I will remind you of this when I'm right.
Mark, can I say what will be bad for her? I think someone like Kate Langbrook is really good at reactionary stuff, at putting her in there with the kids, at putting her in there with the parents.
And thinking on her feet.
That's where she will be brilliant. If they do what everyone seems to do now, is overproduce the shit out of her.
It will be so highly edited.
Well, and that's the problem, because I think she is great on her feet.
And I think that you're right. Given the opportunity, that might make it work, but that's not what it's going to be. We know what this is going to be.
Yeah, I know.
And that's going to be it.
Yeah.
To quickly jump back to $1 Million Island, I think getting Ant Middleton as the host only reinforces my view that there are going to be dead bodies hidden on that island.
On that, Mark, he actually said in an interview, "Think Hunger Games meets Lost."
Jesus.
Can I just point out that there were 1,744 dead bodies in Hunger Games, okay? Through the book. They were stabbed, they were slashed, they were impaled, they were stunned, they were poisoned. I think if he's right, this is my show.
Mate, if I had the opportunity...
Reality TV stars everywhere.
If I had the chance to win $1 million and all I had to do was set up some tiger traps to take the competition out, I would do it in a heartbeat. I am concerned with Ant Middleton as host. He doesn't come in with a great reputation, independent of how Seven are keen to kind of sort of whitewash that.
That hasn't translated to Australia.
No, but that doesn't mean he didn't do it.
UK blow up, but didn't really hit here, mate.
That doesn't mean he didn't do it, and that doesn't mean he hasn't done it here. Maybe he hasn't, and that's wonderful if he hasn't.
But
certainly
he do?
It's more than just... there are not even allegations that he's hit on inappropriately, crew members and cast, and acted inappropriately with, a bouncer. There's an issue where he's apparently body slammed someone outside a nightclub or whatever. Look, it's just behaviour that you don't want to have, even in a tabloid scenario.
Bouncer. I mean, come on.
He wasn't a bouncer. He did it to a bouncer.
No, that's what I'm saying. Bouncers, come on.
And if the bouncer got hurt or died, Middleton's going to jail. There's no
Bouncers hurt people all the time.
Bouncers are a law unto themselves.
Okay, we're not getting into this political game. All I'm saying is that I think that Ant Middleton comes with his damaged goods, and I don't think that, despite what Seven want to do, I don't think it's necessarily going to help, but I am keen to see $1 Million Island nonetheless.
I'll tell you the other thing that Nine showed. They did a big presentation of what's coming up for the back half of this year and what's in the works, but I wasn't really aware of After the Verdict, but they showed a promo for it, and I got to say, I'm in. It looks really, really good.
This is their new drama.
This is their new drama, After the Verdict, and basically the setup is jurors do the court case.
Oh.
I guess it's a murder. The person's found not guilty, and then they're bored, they're living their boring lives and start to get an inkling something's not quite right and start reinvestigating the murder.
This sounds... I know it's not the same, but I think that Nine have missed their boat by not getting it out ahead of Foxtel's The 12, which is, again, the backstory of behind the jurors and what's going on there. So I appreciate it's a slightly different take, and one's a remake and one's an original, Australian product.
And this is a murder mystery with a bit of fun. Anyway, we'll see. It looked good in the promo. I'm sure those promos will start going to air soon.
Oh, more Aussie drama, please. Every moment, more Aussie drama.
Well, sadly this week we said goodbye to a true Australian television legend. You'd know Carol Raye from countless roles in both film, but especially TV. From the Mavis Bramston show to Graham Kennedy's Blankety Blanks, Carol Raye was a true star. Here she is talking about getting a spot on Graham's popular show.
Some years back, I got a call from my agent who said, look, Channel 10 are going to be doing a game show, and they wondered if you would like to come along and be in the pilot. And I said, well, I don't know, I'm not really into doing game shows, but tell me about it. So my agent said, well, I can't tell you a lot except Graham Kennedy is going to present it. And that sort of might make it fun. So I thought, well, yes, I'd never met Graham Kennedy, although I'd seen and admired him from afar. So nothing ventured, nothing gained. Off I went. Graham did all the work. We fell about and laughed a lot. And as was shown in the pilot to management, they had a success on their hands, because subsequently we did go to series and audiences laughed just as much as we did.
Well, Carol would spend 9 months on the show before having to stop to travel with a theatre production. But it was the Mavis Brampton show that first put her on the map, when that show actually went up against Graham Kennedy's In Melbourne Tonight.
Just finished all the business about the contraceptive pill, and they popped this fertility one on us. It's all so confusing. The only thing to do is, before you go to bed, take one of each.
Well, only a week ago, she was appointed a member of the Order of Australia in the Queen's Birthday Honours List. From producing to acting and presenting, she truly was one of the greats. Carol Raye, dead at 99. Philip, you just don't see stars like this anymore, do you?
You don't. And unfortunately, I'm old enough to remember her from Blankety Blanks, and she was always a class act. Sorry, Robbo.
What? Wait, what? I thought you were 20.
I didn't. Look, I was reading. I didn't realise how extraordinary she was until I was doing a little bit of reading today. She not only starred in Number 96, she helped produce it. And, she was a very accomplished performer when she arrived here from England via Kenya. And then the other thing that was quite extraordinary was how the Mavis Brampton show pushed the limits. And she apparently based it on David Frost and said, well, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. And, of course, it rated and worked despite network executives saying you can't do this. So full credit to her, like an absolute trailblazer before her time.
And is that the only time that a network executive has got it wrong? where they thought they knew what the
Luckily,
public...
Robbo, that was in the past, and many things have changed since then.
Hasn't it just?
The only recorded instance.
I tell you what, Carol Raye, what a legend. But now it's time for Hatches and Dispatches with Sarah.
There's a new Labour government and a new leader of the media union. Erin Madley has been given the top job, succeeding Paul Murphy. She's been a member since 2007 and says she's excited and proud for her new role. One of the people responsible for bringing such hits as Old People's Home for 4-year-olds, The Newsreader and Bluey to the screens, has announced his departure from the national broadcaster. For the past 4 years, Michael Carrington has been Director of Entertainment and Specialist at the ABC, but has announced he'll be leaving in July to return to the private production sector. There's a new sheriff in town at Win Television. Nathan Patrick is now the Commercial Director for Regional TV, and he's been with the network since 2006. The Seven Network's #1 drama is returning to the screen and the skies. RFDS has been recommissioned and will return to the network next year. The star-studded drama was nominated for 3 TV Week Logie Awards.
I'm so cynical about this.
I love that show. I'm so happy it's coming back.
I loved it with you. I am so glad it's coming back. It is bullshit that they went, it won some awards. Well, we might give it another season then.
It's probably
It's
expensive.
not like it's the next year. There's a year air gap in this.
And that is Hatches and Dispatches. Back to you, Rob.
Thank you, Sarah. Well, to the ratings race now, and 7 was back on top this week with a weekly network share of 28.7, but 9 wasn't far behind on 27.2. In third was Network 10 with 18.9, ABC followed with 16.5, SBS enjoyed a comfortable 8.7 share. 7 also took out the primary channel race ahead of 9 with 10 narrowly beating the ABC. Multi-channels continued to be 7's game with both 7.2 and 7 Mate gaining a 3.5 share each. 10 Peach was third again with 3.1. The reality race will change shortly with Celebrity Apprentice one and done, but nothing's changed significantly in the ratings with MasterChef continuing to dominate. But while many viewers were preferring the ABC options of the 7:30 report, Australian Story and Gruen, and yes, Mark Lee Sales said I could call it the 7:30 report, thank you very much. The 10 polls at 7:30 on the commercial networks are seeing a significant lift in +7 numbers. As we turn the clock, the way back clock, to week 23, which was week commencing 29th of the 5th, we can see The Voice Grand Final was the #1 entertainment with 1.458 million viewers. That includes 833,000 five-cap city overnights, plus 452,000 regional, plus 148,000 BVOD, broadcast video on demand. Overall, it ranked #6 behind the news services. Have You Been Paying Attention on 10 was next at #10 on 1.121 million. Home and Away lifted to a touch over a million to sit at #15. 7's The Chase was at #16 on 990,000, and the Monday edition of MasterChef snuck into the top 20 at #19 with a total TV audience of 917,000. Its five-cap city overnight figure had been 593,000. Also worth noting that the Monday episode of 7's Big Brother saw a 42% rise, achieving a figure of 773,000, a big jump from its Metro overnight figure of 363,000. Have You Been Paying Attention was the #1 program in 25 to 54s, not just in entertainment, but including news. It was #1 overall. Mulk, any surprises in that lot for you?
Gosh. I just want to clarify really quickly, Rob, that the percentage uplift isn't compared to 5-city metro. It's compared to the national figure. So that percentage uplift isn't just compared to the 300,000 that Big Brother pulled on the night. It's Big Brother's 5-city metro plus their regional figure. That's the percentage uplift it's compared to. So just to clarify that.
Thank you for the clarification. To be honest, this was the first week we're doing +7, so we'll work those bumps out and make that clear as we go forward.
That's not a problem. The real interesting thing is MasterChef is almost unchallenged at 7:30. Even though it kind of has built to this, there's no question, and I know it's coming to its last legs soon. It has seen away Big Brother and seen away Celebrity Apprentice without question, at least on overnights. Big Brother is getting a pretty...
Interesting, Mulk. There is chatter within the industry at the moment that they know that every spend needs to bring return because they know that people won't just watch a 7:30 tentpole and then leave. They know that they have to fight to get the eyeballs there at 7:30. It was a big discussion taking place at the Logies, I've got to say, about where the viewers are and what's happening. And there really did seem to be some interesting chatter about the need for 9 o'clock shows. So, I've been banging on about this for a long time now.
Do we know that?
I know that. There actually seems to be some thinking within the industry that maybe they need to do that. A hard thing is investment when you're having to take these gambles, because as you have fewer eyeballs, you have to reduce budgets.
Yes.
But you need to roll the dice and say, look, and I genuinely do believe strip programming Monday to Thursday at 9 p.m. is something needed, but not just any program, has to be the right program, obviously, because as a consumer, I have no idea, outside of have you been paying attention on 10, around that 8:30, 9 o'clock mark, I don't really have any concept of what's on when. Right? I stumble over them. I find them on catch up. So then to me, as a consumer, if you want me to have a destination each evening before I go to bed, you need a 9 o'clock stripped show.
And here's the challenge. There are 3 great examples of how a prime time and its follow-up show are helping the network at least win, if not those slots, certainly most of the night. 10's MasterChef into Have You Been Paying Attention on Monday, 10's MasterChef into the cheap seats on Tuesday, and then the ABC owning Wednesday night almost unequivocally. It's and that's their traditional comedic-ish night. They've done a great turn with it. It's such.
But that's the thing with that breaks the rules of strip programming, because the ABC Wednesday nights has always been that destination for that kind of programming.
Sure,
a bit of comedy night, So even in my dullard head, I know Wednesday night's comedy on ABC.
The solution for any kind of strip program really needs to be a 9:30-ish time slot. The problem is going to be it's going to get in the way of things. You work that stuff out, but the budget for a program at that time of night is going to be so wafer thin, it will be almost impossible to do in a way that gives it the credit, because the audience. And you also have to be almost making that program acknowledging that the audience are not all going to tune in at 9:30. They're going to watch it at 10 a.m., 6 p.m. the next day.
Mate, you can do a 40-plus week, 45 week, 48, whatever you want, for under 10 million a year, because once everything's in place, you can do it smart and you can have a great show.
Well, this goes back to a conversation from a few podcast episodes ago where I think it was James Warburton talked about, or it might not have been him, I apologise, amortising the cost of particularly drama across the life of the program, not across the life of the run. That, and maybe I read it somewhere else, that the idea that if you're going to say you spend, and I'm pulling numbers out of my bum, $10 million on a 10-episode drama, and you think I'm going to recoup that money in those 10 airings on free-to-air, in first run, maybe I'll get it in a little bit of on-selling or repeats later. No, you actually have to think, we're going to put it up on our catch-up service, or we're going to on-sell it to a stand or do something like that, blah, 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 blah. The actual monies that you will get in across that have to go for a much longer time period. And when you think about how am I going to return my investment, you cannot get it back in its first run window anymore. It's just not possible. And that's seized up the industry around how they want to spend money. There needs to be that kind of visionary rethink about how networks see the cost-benefit return on their investments.
Well, there's plenty of chatter going around, I can tell you that. All right, let's open the TV Bingebox and find out what everyone has been watching. Sarah, what have you been watching while you're in Australia?
I've actually been flicking around quite a bit, and I found that
you were watching my Logies red carpet interviews.
I was, and then I was watching actual television, which surprises everyone. And predominantly 10. I've actually been enjoying all of their evening stuff. So I watched the cheap seats. Have you been paying attention? I even watched some of the project. And then on the ABC...
Why couldn't 10 do Have You Been Paying Attention on Monday and then do the cheap seats Tuesday to Thursday? Stripped programming like that. I know, the reason I say that is I know Working Dog won't do Have You Been Paying Attention.
They won't do the cheap seats the same way either, because it works best in that single hour in that context, and the amount of effort they pour into that each week with a very small team, but they make it go. I don't think it's practical, certainly for 10's budget.
Well, it is practical, but they don't want to do it, and that's fine. That's not what
for
Working
their
Dog wants to
budget,
do.
Rob. I know it's practical as an idea.
10 million, mate. I'm telling you, it can all be done for 10 million.
So then I also switched over to the ABC, and I watched Arn's Brush with Fame, which was, I think, Kate Ceberano. And then there was a
brush with someone else painting.
Oh,
his
hang
fame.
about. Now we're getting a bit whatever.
And then there was a
Google
show.
It, kids. Google it.
Shush. I'm doing my thing. There was a TV show on the ABC that I'd never heard of before, and it just came on, and it was called The Good Karma Hospital. Mm-hmm. And it's about a woman who goes to India, and they have like this little tiny, it was like a country practice set in like tropical India.
Yes.
And it was actually really good. Like, I enjoyed it, and I would totally go back and watch more.
The highest rated program on Saturday night, other than the news.
Huh. Well, it was good. I could see why. I watched the Logies, and then after the Logies, I watched Top 10 of Everything, the Logies edition.
That was fun.
That was actually really good. And then the other very exciting thing I did this week, which was on a screen but not television, is I went to a special screening of Elvis at the Event Cinemas. And if you have not seen the new cinemas yet, they are amazing. Like, you can lay back, they bring you food. It's really, really good. And Elvis was outstanding. Like, I've seen just like reviews all over the place. It was amazing.
Awesome. All right, Philip, what have you been watching?
Very school, Mum.
I took a leaf out of all your books and thought I'd check out Celebrity Apprentice, Big Brother, MasterChef. So I've been flicking around those for the past week. I could have liked Celebrity Apprentice if I got into it early enough. Big Brother's just lost the plot for me. All those games, games are just irritating. I just think, I don't want to watch you fucking flick a ball on a stick or something. I just want to see you pick a pimple in the mirror, or, talk about something disgusting. That's what Big Brother is to me. And I know I'm winding the clock back. So, sorry, Reggie, no Big Brother for me. I've also watched a bunch of movies. Spectre, the Bond movie. Bond movie, don't worry about that. Tried to watch Red Dawn, which is one of Chris Hemsworth's first movies.
Oh, the second one? Okay.
It's dreadful, but it's so bad. I'm actually going to give it another go because it's laughably bad. It's like fall off your chair, laugh at the terrible script and acting. So that was a real find. And I took one for the team, or for Sarah, and watched the first episode of NCIS Hawaii. They're all pretty. It's just a bit like fairy floss crime TV, and that's okay.
You'll fit right in, Sarah.
I have watched the first 4 episodes of season 4 of Westworld. I had a preview of those, and it's brilliant. Really, really love it. I'm so in. Can't wait to see the rest of the season.
It's not one that you can just jump in if you don't know what's going on, though.
Oh, no.
It's a little bit
You
rough.
have to. You can't jump in at season 4.
At least read or watch the final episode of the season before. And if you haven't seen season 3, you're cooked.
Or do what our producer Abby does. She goes online to YouTube and watches the 5-minute recaps of each season for shows. So she catches up.
Helps.
It certainly does. We watched 13 Going on 30 on Stan, just a nice family movie. Of course, I'm watching Big Brother, and we're doing the Big Brother eviction interviews. Tully was last night. She was really interesting. There's some good ones coming up. I went back to the well of 9 out of 10 Cats Does Countdown. It was season 5, episode 1, which is a long time ago. I discovered, and that was on Bingebox, I discovered God's Favourite Idiot on Netflix. I watched a couple of episodes. I'm sort of enjoying it. I'll watch it again. Not really. It's not must watch, but it's nice. It's nice. I've got to say, because I'm not doing I was off with COVID and not doing the radio show, I usually watch the Today Show so that I can use grabs on the radio show, right? So I watched Sunrise. It's a very slick production, very different to the Today Show. While there might be some identical formats along the way they do it is very different. It's a very fast show, sometimes too fast. Koshi will ask someone a question, and then because they're taking more than 20 seconds to answer the question, he's giving yep, okay, right, and trying to hurry them on so they can get to the next thing. I think sometimes there's a bit too much content crammed in, or don't ask the last question. If you're not going to let them answer it, don't ask that last question. But it's number one. It's a great show. You can see the amount of effort and production that goes into it. I think Sarah Stinson is doing an amazing job. It just, maybe I'm getting old, but at times it just seemed too fast, and I felt like the hosts were being rude, cutting people off. And
don't forget, she's not EPing it. She's just director of morning television.
She's the director of morning TV, though. Everything's ultimately her call.
Well, I would say that there's a lot that's the executive producer's call, and Sarah would be working with him to make sure that it suits their grand overall plan.
Absolutely.
But she's not going to necessarily have minutiae detailed concern about
I agree with that. And she's obviously thinking big picture and how they're doing. And I will say, always been a great cast, still is a great cast. And, compared to today, at times, I think it is a great cast who've got lots of chemistry. I just think they're trying to force laughter at times and say, oh, this is the segment where we have to be silly and dance and, but I still like today. I'm just, it was interesting to compare and contrast. And I drop a little bit of a bombshell, not a bombshell, just an interesting point about that Logies.
Talk yourself up.
No, mate, I can't help. It's the promo writer in me. I've got a bombshell for you. No. One of the interesting things that I learnt at the Logies Recovery Brunch, the Channel 9 thing, was with the 100, which is back for another season, they're going to do a segment called Couples Counselling, where a couple that's having an argument will be there and the 100 get to decide who's right and wrong. I love this idea as a segment. I think it would actually make a breakout show. I think this could lead to hilarity when you've got a couple that are absolutely fighting over something, but probably been fighting for years, and the 100 give the ultimate verdict. I really love that. I'm looking forward to seeing that. Robbo,
Judge Judy by any other name.
Sorry?
Judge Judy by any other name.
Well, maybe. Robbo, what have you been watching?
I'm still sticking with Mad Men, Modern Family, but I did have a dream the other night where I was producing a breakfast show that was hosted by Mike Carlton, the radio presenter, and Peter Dutton. And Peter Dutton was he was getting really annoyed with me when I was trying to tell him that he needs to be more empathetic and if he just listened and stuff. And he stormed out. This is in a dream, of course. And Mike Carlton turned to me and said, "Don't worry, mate. He's a CUNT." And that was the end of the dream.
Well, consider that's pot calling the kettle black from Mike Carlton. But anyway,
that was my dream.
Wow.
Sorry, I've already
Mike
been
Carlton,
blocked by him on Twitter.
I love Mike Carlton. He's great.
Wow. Look, I'm still watching the Logies because it's still going. We had to throw that gag in, didn't we? I'm desperately and hotly anticipating and just do not want Obi-Wan Kenobi to end.
Oh.
The final episode is this week.
Yes, I've been watching that.
Sweet Jesus.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It was pointed out to me, somebody pointed out that there's been some memes starting to fly around for the fact that, here's Princess Leia as a 10-year-old ostensibly, and the Solo movie that has Han Solo as like a 21-year-old or whatever it is, maybe it just gets a little bit creepy when you add 8 years and put them in Star Wars, and there she is as an 18-year-old and he's 30.
It's the other side of the galaxy. It's in a galaxy far, far away. A long time ago, they had different values, mate. You can't judge them by Earth standards.
Rob.
Well, it's 1,000 light years away, so maybe they're actually only 800 years apart.
It's a meme. It's not real. The show. It's not real. It's okay. It's just a thing. But yeah, I'm so keen to see it, and I just don't want it to end. So I'm desperately keen to see that happen. Also, and this is big props to Disney Plus, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness is still in some cinemas, and it drops on their screening service, like proper for everybody, tomorrow night, Wednesday night podcast.
Love that.
Such a smart move, mate. That gap between the first and second window is officially all but closed.
So that's 45 days, I think they're doing, but
mate, it's still in cinemas. It only premiered 3.5 weeks ago.
It's a 45-day window, right?
From when it ends at the cinema. Not 45 days from it starting.
Disney are doing a 45-day window from when it premieres to when they run it on Disney Plus.
They are transforming the window, but this is the first time that they've done this where you can actually go and watch it in a cinema or sit at home and watch it with a Disney Plus subscription. So that's some big news, and I'm keen to see it because I missed it.
Oh.
Oops, just been busy. Oh, no, I just didn't get a chance to get out to the cinema. I did get to see Top Gun, loved it. We'll go back and see it again or buy it as soon as I can buy it.
You'll have to wait a long time to see that on a streaming service because the window for that streaming is much, much longer.
I'll buy it as soon as they let me buy it. It's just going to be, it was just so fun. I loved it to bits. I too dodged into Westworld, which is coming shortly to Foxtel, Fox Showcase, season 4, and I was confused, so I had to go back and read some recaps to catch up. But once I caught up with where we were, I'm in for the whole season, as confusing as it is. I also finished off The Boys, which we got sent the final episodes on preview, which appears on Prime Video. And this season 3, I mean, if you thought it started weird and ugly and amazing, it does the same at the end, though I think they pull a couple of punches. But season 4, we'll bring it on. Look, Celebrity Apprentice, I've hung in there. I will absolutely watch the finale tonight. I'm a little bit underwhelmed, except to say that I thought that Benji Marshall's pitch to Stan in the penultimate episode last night absolutely should be a documentary that they pick up. I know it was just for the premise of the show, but jeepers, he pitched the guts out of that, and by his own admission had no idea what he was doing. So good, so smart. And the telling line for mine, Philip, I'd love to get your take, was when he said, because the idea was he pitched this, who is Benji Marshall? Because everyone sees him as a footballer and don't know who he is behind the scenes. And he said, even I don't know. I'm still working it out.
That's a great line.
I thought it was an amazing pitch, and I was thinking, I bet there's people all around the country thinking, how can I exploit this with you?
Well, we know it was filmed a while ago, and his star has only continued to rise on Foxtel in their commentary situations. Like, yeah, Stan would be nuts not to actually put that in development.
Well, thank you, Mark. And I've got to tell you that even though we did a big Logies wrap, we're not that far over. So thank you for joining us for this edition of the TV Black Box. We'll be back again next week for more stories, exclusives, reviews and the like. Go to tvblackbox.com.au. It's where people in the industry get their news. I'm Rob McKnight. You've been joined by Sarah Monahan, Mulk, David Robinson and Philip Kosh. We'll see you next week.